Right, welcome everybody to the second instalment of Ted and Andy's Graphic Adventure. This session is about mounting. So, and also it's about how to present your work, and it will cover some key issues that will cover equipment and tools, as well as aesthetics and practicalities about how to go about mounting your work for the first semester. So number one, I think, is to point out this is cutting mat. We have cutting mats within the studios, and we use the cutting mats to save our blades. Now, some of the things I want to talk about is things we don't use that much. Scissors. Number one, we don't use scissors that much. That's Mr. Maker territory. This is a Stanley knife used by craftspeople. I'm not saying that they're not useful to us, but we don't tend to use these. So if you've got these, keep them, but you should also be given a scalpel. Now, scalpels can look a little bit like that, these ones, but these again, these ones here, as you can possibly see, are more for modelling, but the one we actually do use is this one here, which is the Swan Morton scalpel. Now, you should have one of those in your starter pack. It's metal, and they come with a set of blades. Now, the blades are 10A, so there is a 10A blade. Now, the thing about these scalpels is they're incredibly sharp. They are surgically sharp, so you have to be very careful with them. So if you want any hand, I'm just going to show you how to put one on one of the blades. So you open up the packet in there, and you will find yourself, you have 5 in the packet, and within that piece of paper, there it is. So I don't know if you can see that. That's a 10A blade, which is a straight blade, which is generally a standard blade for most design agencies. And the way to put them on is just to put them in like that, and then put them into the cutting mat and put a little click, and there it's on. So it's very, very, very sharp. One of the ways to actually keep it sort of safe, sometimes people put them into rubbers like that to actually keep them safe. But this is what we'll be using, so get used to using that. And the reason why we use it on the cutting mat is to save the blade, and we don't want to cut on the tables. The thing about these blades is they're incredibly sharp, but they can also go blunt very fast as well. Should you get cut by them, the cut will be clean. You just have to apply pressure and hold your hand up. Most designers do have a bit missing here on their finger. And I don't know if you can see on there, I once had a severe kind of cutting accident on there. Now, that brings me on to rulers. That's a plastic ruler. That's generally not good, really. It's too short. What you should have in your pack is a metal 600mm ruler. Now these again are pretty good. They have 2 sides to them, one for measuring and this one here for cutting, which I'll come on to in a minute. You can get plastic ones. The problem with plastic ones is they can actually, over time, and cutting with a scalpel, they get grooves in them. So when you actually go down and put your start to cut, you can quite easily go off into your finger. So try to avoid using plastic rulers, number one. Throw that away. So that's a little bit of an introduction to cutting. Now, with the project that you've got at the moment, you have to get 6 images initially. So I have 6 images here, which I've run out from the computer, and these are my 6 edited images out of about 60 I collected. These are the ones I want to mount up. So what I'm going to show you is basically how to go about cutting one of these out. So, number one, never cut into your image, because basically that means obviously you've got to print it out again. Always cut on what they call the waist edge. Yeah. So you take your scalpel and number one, wrong side. Cut it on that side. This side here, not the measured side. Cut down. Turn it around. Always cut on the waist edge. Go round and cut on the waist edge. Go round and cut on the waist edge. So there we have nice and clean, lovely straight edges. We have nice crisp 100mm square image. So once you've done that, just carry on and cut the rest out, and you will end up with 6 images. Now the next thing, you've got to mount them up. So in the brief it says you've got to mount them on A2 card, either white or black. Now I have some white card here, and one of the decisions you've got to make is whether you want to mount your work on white or on black. Generally I would say white, but it depends on what basically colour or shade your images are. So I have my 6 images here, which I've already cut out. Now, one of the things also is the measuring, very important. Whether it's on a computer or whether it's physical or analog like this, measurement for graphic designers is incredibly important. Now, using the 600mm ruler, this is a piece of A2, which is 420mm by 594. You should be able to get to know your A sizes. I don't know whether you know them already, but most designers know most of the A sizes: A6, A5, A4, A3, A2, and A1, normally off by heart. So, but how to go about putting the images onto the A2 so they're all lined up correctly. So, what you do is, you might not be able to see from here, but I've already marked it up. But number one is go across and find the halfway distance. One mark there, one mark there, using a pencil. These clutch pencils are very good. You could possibly, use standard pencil, just make sure it's sharp. But these little kind of clutch design pencils here have a 1mm leading on them, so they're quite good. So once you've found your centre point, you then just have to basically score that in with a pencil. And then another decision you've got to make is how high up to mount your images. Now, generally, I don't know if you know this, but generally when you mount things, or you look at a picture on a wall in somebody's house, things are generally mounted not necessarily in the centre. They're mounted slightly up. So the margin at the top is always a little bit smaller than the margin at the bottom, which is bigger. So on this particular layout, I've decided that I want to come down by 8 centimetres or 80mm. So again, I make a mark at 80, I make a mark at 80, and then I join those two lines up with a pencil mark. So I have a centre and a top line. So once I've got that, that means that then I can then place in the centre one of my images, because this image is 100mm square. So all I have to do is measure 50, 50, 50, 50 and draw a line down, and then I basically have a centre point. And then I'll just show you now by putting these out onto here. I want this distance here is good to keep the same distance in between. I'll show you what I mean in a moment. So there we go. So there. So this distance here is good, visually, aesthetically pleasing if it looks the same distance there, as opposed to something like that maybe. Do you know what I mean? Where that distance isn't. So just be aware of that. So it doesn't matter what that distance is, it's up to you. But it wants to be comfortable. And this is where the aesthetics come in to the project. Also, with the 6 images, which order you want to put them in. That's another important thing. There might be a reason why you've got them. That one's first, and people generally read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you might have a situation where you've got to start with that one because you might be telling a story, or there might be a punchline at the end. So that's basically how to cut out your images and lay them out. Now you've got to stick them on. Now another thing, we don't use Pritt stick very often. Pritt stick, again, is in the land of scissors and is in the land of Mr. Maker. We use, as I say, something called spray mount. You might have come across spray mount before. This is the brand leader, the 3M spray mount. You can also get photo mount, which is stronger as well. This is again, this should be in your pack. What one tin should be able to do the first semester or the first year really, and I'm going to come on to show you how to use that. But I just want to make a point that not Pritt stick. Because the thing about Pritt stick is you can't get it off really. The thing about spray mount is it's repositional adhesive. And that means that basically you can spray something down, and then you can if you want to take it off, you can lift it off with a corner and move it around. Sometimes you can use lighter fuel, which you can get from your local newsagent, sometimes for £1. This is petrol, and this been daubed on it as well can release the glue, and then once it dries, it's good to go again. You can respray it. So yeah, repositional. So we'll now basically move to the spraying stage. Ted? Welcome back. This is the spray booth room. We'll be going there in a minute, but I just wanted to point out the actual the switchboard. We're on fan number C, there. Press green for go. I don't know if you can hear it, but basically it's on there. When you come out, just press red and it stops. So basically, yeah, green for go, and you go in, and red for stop. We're now in the spray booth area, and as you can see, we're at spray booth number C. This is the spray booth area. This is a clean surface. Always check that it's not too sticky. If it is a bit sticky, then put another piece of paper on top and this is my first image, my first square image of the Roadrunner. Place it face down, spray mount, give it a good shake, And when you're spraying, you've just got to basically keep it about 6 inches away and just give it an even spray like that, and that should be enough. Okay, I'm just going to take it over now and put it onto the... Here I am again, bring over the roller, put your image up with the lines, and then another top tip is to use a piece of paper to go over the top to sort of like gently rub it down. One of the reasons we do this is basically putting paper over the top. You see I've got a ring on, and people have done it before, they go like that, and then they get a mark across their image with the ring, and unfortunately have to take it off again. So that's number one, and then you just have to basically go through doing the same thing with each one, and then there we go, and it becomes just a process after that. Once you've got to go for the guide marks, there's 4, number 5, number 6. I don't know if anybody while I'm doing this can guess what actually the word actually is that I was given. Maybe I'll leave that up to you guys to work out on those images. Yeah, so there you have them all stuck down. So the other thing I need to do now is just rub out the pencil lines. I can't see, I've lost my rubber, but don't worry. So I'll rub the pencil lines out, and then it just remains for me to get a plastic sleeve. Now everybody again should have got some paper and plastic sleeves anyways. Plastic sleeve, nice and clean, and then all you have to do is take your card and then slip it into the plastic sleeve once it's neat and tidy, and then it's ready to go to be hung up in the crit. And I think that's about it really.